Hello, Abigail here with the Tarotscopes for Gemini season, Libra Sun, Moon, and Rising. All right, my Libra folks and people with Libra placements, this is a very transitory season. Of course, Gemini being a mutable sign, we are already kind of shifting from one season to the next. The next season is going to be Cancer season, which officially starts this summer. But within this season, we have tons of transiting planets shifting signs. So this is just a constant ebb and flow between these planets. The larger ones, um, Saturn will be kind of retrograding back eventually in September, but this is the first time Saturn goes into Aries since it's been since like 27, 28 years. So it's a really big and exciting moment. And that starts off on May 24th. Then we go into the very next day, which is where Mercury goes into Gemini. It's domicile sign, which is really nice. And then we get a nice new moon the day after that on the 26th, which has a domicile, Mercury, which is really nice because that's the ruler of the moon. And I'll just say the lunations for this season are all really impactful and big and in connection with some really intense astrology, but it has these domicile and exalted placements. So, like Jupiter going into Cancer for the Sagittarius full moon, that really add an edge of support to the work that happens in those moons. So, while yeah, there's a little tension. The Gemini new moon is going to be trine Pluto. That's just how it is. That Sagittarius full moon is going to be square the lunar nodes, but we have these really supportive activities by the ruling planets. So that's a really kind of sweet touch to the season. Then on June 6th, we get Venus going into Taurus. So another domicile placement. Venus is most at home in Taurus. It feels like a nice deep breath and release after the Venus retrograde. Very helpful, very transformative, but we do get some ease with Mercury in Gemini and, Venus in Taurus in their home signs. Then we get on the 8th, Mercury going into Cancer, which then we're out after the domicile. When Mercury is not retrograding, it moves very quickly. And then we get Jupiter going into Cancer the very next day on the 9th. So this is just such a really transformative time. And if you notice, these big shifts are happening in like chunks of 3 days. So we have, Saturn, Mercury, and then that new moon. And then we have the Venus and, moving into Taurus, and then Mercury and Jupiter shifting signs. All of these happening within 3 days. So there are some really intense pockets in Gemini season. And then we have, this full moon in Sagittarius on the 11th. That, like I said, is going to be tense, a little eclipsy, especially when we have like a lunar moment and a solar moment in a square, but has that beautiful touch of that exalted Jupiter. And last but not least, on the 17th of June, we get Mars entering Virgo, which, well, it's like Mars is neither here nor there in Virgo, and it can be hypercritical. It does get down to details, and we really see action happening through the details. So it feels very much as though all of these transits are really starting to shift and move the dynamic forward and really create a space for us that we can start to really get our roots down and grow after having to experience that really intense transformation from the earlier part of this year. For you all being, in a trine to that, you're going to be getting touched off a lot. Like we have that Pluto trine with the early degrees of Libra, so anything there is going to be getting kind of pinged off of. We have anything in Gemini is getting pinged off of. So definitely check your chart, your placements. If they're getting aspected early or late is important. So if you have stuff at the beginning of Libra, it's going to be a little more intense for you. If you have stuff at the later degrees, then you're not getting that Pluto influence, which is definitely kind of drawing things out for better or for worse. But it is an exciting season. I'm excited for the shifts and the changes. It does feel, I've kind of, in readings with clients and stuff, I've been constantly kind of being directed towards Cancer season as the season when stuff shifts and changes. So it does feel like this is a beautiful setup to go into Cancer season and all these shifts and changes. And now let's get your archetype card, which is the comic, which I love this little card because it's like, looks really silly, goofy, and haha on the front. And then you look into the eyes of this little clown cat, and it's very sad and depressing. So there's a bit of duality in here. There's being honest with how things are and true to your feelings, but also really digging into that Gemini energy of play and fun and, learning to exist in, both in the pain and the knowledge of what's going on around you, and then also in the fact that joy is resistance, and without joy, then we aren't really left with much. So I encourage you like to feel all of your feelings, feel the sadness and the struggles and the pain and the revelations, but then also make sure that you're participating in the joy and the beauty of things, especially with this being such a vibrant and growth focused time of year, especially in the, this hemisphere. Doesn't mean you have to ha when you're sad, but I do think the comic is here to remind us that, the best comedians draw from a multitude of experiences. Comedians don't only draw from like haha. In fact, a lot of comedic jokes are like, oh, that's really depressing but hilarious. So, have a dynamic approach to this season. You don't have to wallow in how hard and difficult everything is, and you also don't have to pretend it doesn't exist. Be both, be a dynamic performer, be a fully embodied human. And then moving into our tarot cards, we start off with a nice Page of Swords, and it's really time to get curious. Even if you don't have stuff bouncing off of Pluto, it's really time to kind of get to the root of things. This beautiful page, is doing the things that you do to succeed, tidying things up, but also pursuing their dreams and being curious and thoughtful about the tools that you have and the things that you want to do and the places that you want to go. And I think too, cutting away pretense and the reasons why we do things. Are we doing things because we want to? Are we doing them because we feel obligated to? Are we doing them because we're forced to? And I want to be clear, like not all of us can just up and leave something that's difficult. Most of us can't. Like there's a lot of stuff involved, but you can start putting one foot in front of the other to get to a place where you can transform your life. It doesn't all have to happen at once, but in this Gemini season, it feels like the very little fine detailed things you can do can help move you forward and progress. So don't poo-poo the little steps. And I know they can feel frustrating when little steps are all we can do, but little steps turn into big steps when we look back, So don't be too disheartened by how slow things are moving or appearing to. Although I will say things are going to pick up in the season, so slow will be a relative term. I will say if you are an air sign, there might be, unless you're Aquarius, there might be a big struggle with the telling of time and feeling like it's taking too long. So, just know that it's not taking too long. That things are being laid in place, whether you can see them or not, that are going to prepare you and set you up for the future. And then we have the Devil, and this card has been popping up everywhere. This is such a beautiful card. I love it. It is so kinky and a little naughty. I love and I have dyslexia, so I have to make sure I get the letters incorrect. Fyodor Pavlov deck, and believe me, I've mispronounced it before. Absolutely love this deck. One of my favorite decks. Has a lot of beautiful erotic cards in it. But the Devil's been showing up a lot. I've had at least, I think, maybe 3 other Devil cards, and I'm not even halfway through the Zodiac right now at the time of recording. It's really about, self-determination. And yeah, I think the traditional thing with the Devil is like obsession and control and things like that. And there's definitely this element of control, but there's also an element of consent in this thing. And when we think of the archetype, the Devil, which in Christianity, they kind of blend Satan and the devil together, and I'm just going to go with that. Even though pretty for sure technically the devil is considered separate from Satan by a lot of people. They aren't the same entity. When you actually get down to the nitty gritty and look into folklore and things like that. But for the sake of this argument, we're going to go with the devil and the Satan being the same thing. And if you think about Satan's crime, was that he was absolutely fabulous, gorgeous, beautiful singing voice. And he questioned the powers that be. He questioned the powers that did things without thinking of others, that made rules that only benefited them, who claimed control over other beings and then no responsibility. So I think in this season, it is about questioning power and becoming the devil in a lot of people's eyes who have been programmed to believe that things should just be the way they are and that people in power deserve power because they breathe and have money. It is the time to do things that are subversive, especially with this card. It's the time to explore, try something new. Um, I think a lot of times we kind of make a big deal about trying something new as if we try it, we're like doomed to constantly engage in it the rest of our life. No, you can try something and go, that was an interesting experience. Not for me, but play around with stuff this season. Don't get stuck in having to either accept everything that you try or not trying at all because you don't want to have to like deal with what that might bring up for you. Pardon me. But yeah, be subversive, be wild, be free, try new things, play with pleasure, play with joy, play with sadness, going back to our card, the comic. And then we have this really beautiful Three of Wands, which I really love. It is a gorgeous card. Um, I love that the wands in this card are sprouting leaves, the beautiful seabirds off there, and the ships heading out. You have done a lot of work. You have really labored and put in effort and crafted some really beautiful things, and they have yet to see the light of day. And in this Gemini season, it's like you're going to shove them out into the waters of the universe, into the psyche of other people's psyche and their vision and everything that they see. What you have created is going to come to the forefront. And so it's a really exciting time. It's a crossroads. If you haven't pushed out your little ships, if you haven't committed to sharing the things that you are creating, and I want to be clear, you don't have to be selling them if you don't want to. I know because of the stage of capitalism that we're at, that a lot of us are kind of forced to turn our hobbies into like actual jobs, and that's totally fine. You can also not do that. So, you have the choice, but there are some things that you need to get out into the world. There are some things that you need to share. You have something of value to bring to us. Don't be afraid of it. And trust and believe that your infusion of intention will give these little ships and these dreams and desires that you're sending out into the world their own purpose and intention, and they will follow through on the reason you sent them out. And maybe you get back what you want, maybe you don't, but it's not wasted. Any effort, any push for visibility and like sending yourself out into the world is valid and necessary. And then I love this guy, King of Coins. Is it King? No, it's Knight of Coins. Knight of Coins. I love this imagery. I love our wheelchair. um, I love his steed being this really beautiful thick boy. And the Knight of Pentacles is about that step by step process. It is about doing the things that you need to do, the mundane, the day to day, the things that aren't flashy or glamorous. The rest of the knights kind of charge into battle and charge into adventure. And this knight goes thoughtfully and picks the right ground and chooses the correct medium for transportation, and is thoughtful about the path ahead and where he wants to go and how he wants to get there. So, it's whatever your dreams are, it's never a bad idea to take some time to really decide how to go. I'm not talking about taking time because you're scared. I'm talking about taking time because you're like, what? I really want to give this some wings. I want to give this some oomph as I, release it into the wild. And it also feels like the season is prepping us for a bit more of a chaotic season, which is going to start once we head into late fall, early winter. Pardon, the pollen is crazy here today, and I went for a walk, and now I am extremely dunky. Anyways, so we're planting a bunch of stuff this summer. Some of it's going to come to fruition right away. Some of it's going to come to fruition, a little bit down the road. Some of it is us planning for next year, because a lot of these big planetary ingresses really don't fully get kicked off until next year. So, like, we're going to have the Saturn retrograde, and then Neptune is going to retrograde as well and go back into Pisces. And then we're also going to have Uranus going back into Taurus for a little bit. So, when all of those things have happened, because the Uranus ingress into Gemini doesn't happen until next month. It's next month. Yeah. Nope. It's the 1st of July, like in the first week of July. Um, so yeah, like we're gonna have to redo some stuff later on, but we are prepping ourselves for the journey ahead right now in Gemini season. And last, but definitely not least, we have a King of Wands, which I love because we have that Three of Wands kind of back in there, that claiming of one's power, that moving through desire, and also, there's a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of people who don't believe in us, and it's not their job, it's not their business, it's not their life. And win, lose, or draw, I think the main thing is that you do what you want and that you were the person who made these choices and you were the person who stepped out in your power. And when people question and doubt it's always fine to like review what you're doing and, make sure you're on the right path. But the people who are doubting you because they don't want you to succeed or doubting you because they're afraid of their own progress, so they're afraid that you're going to have yours, either because they don't want you to progress or they don't want to be left behind, or they're just afraid of failure all around and they don't want you to fail, which fine, but like my life, it's time to just be like, you know what, it is my life. And I'm going to believe in me and I'm going to take myself to the places that I want to go with the things that I want to do. And yeah, maybe those things change along the way, but at least this entire journey was started and perpetuated by me and the people that support me and my community. So, be brave this season, step out, do the things that you need to do. I don't always read the next card at the bottom of the deck. I usually do 4 pulls, 1 card, but this one is speaking to me because we do have the wands. We do finally have a bit of a 10 of wands, just reminding you with all of the energy and with all the stuff that's happening, it is possible to take on more than you can chew. A lot of good things too. Like there's a lot of good things coming and you're going to need to be thoughtful about which ones you take on, because if you're not thoughtful, you will end up being burdened by some really beautiful things. And we're not quite out of the woods on what is 2025. And the earlier part was really exhausting. And so, like, going in and the minute you have space, being like, I'm gonna pick up that, pick up this, pick up that, you can end up being reburdened just by stuff that's more fun. So, just to caution, don't overburden yourself this season and, take your time with deciding what you're going to do with the stuff that you have, very much that Knight of Pentacles. Anyways, my Libra humans, this is my reading for you. If you like and enjoy my content, please like and subscribe and, pop a comment down below. Tell me how your season's going. Tell me if it resonated. Pretty much anything. I'd love to hear from you all. And, blessed Gemini season. I'll see you in a different space and time.